We've got to promote some sort of campaign. What's it called? To empower communities. What's it called? To clean up after themselves.
I am the councillor that appeared on leaflets with a rat on top of their head.
So I can't just drop the litter. I can't just park on the WL lines on the pavement. I can't just let fireworks off at 3 o'clock in the morning because I feel like it. Because the people out there do care. And I think, us normal people haven't had this voice for a long time.
In our time, these streets used to be so clean, and we
in our time,
in the winter.
We used to polish our doorsteps.
These are the stories we hear. The young people used to go and help in elderly neighbours, and I am for bringing that culture back of the community, the neighbourhood culture.
So welcome to Let's Talk with Asian Sunday. This is where we give our readers an opportunity to come and talk to us along with some of our councillors, some of our leaders, some famous personalities and so on, around the table over some food, over some nice chai or coffee. And today our very first panel is local councillors and local residents. What we want to talk about today is what are the key priorities for Bradford. Are those priorities being met? And also a discussion on our City of Culture bid. So let me introduce you to my panel today. So we first have Councillor Jeanette Sunderland of the Liberal Democrats. And we have Councillor Naveed Riaz from the Conservative Party. And here we have Chris Tody from Bradford for Better, also a local resident. And we also have here Rubina Khalid from Women's Zone based in Bradford. Okay, so can I ask the panel firstly, let's start with what do you think are or should be the key priorities for Bradford? What do you think, Chris?
I think from my point of view, I'm very tired of people calling Bradford a dump and worse. And I think we've all heard it. And we need to change that culture around. I think the city just looks like it's been neglected. I don't think we're getting the standard of service and environment that we deserve.
Rubina, what do you think are priorities?
For me is I think health and education and young people being involved more with crime. Those are the major issues.
Yeah.
And also the communities are, we're trying our best to bring the communities together. And I think if we could bring all the communities together, then Bradford can be, the image could be refreshed, I will say. People do like Bradford. When you talk out of Bradford about Bradford, they saw a city of culture. But when they come here and some things, they put them off, especially, the Leeds Road now is getting more busier, but you do see, you don't feel safe. So the safety and all those issues, I think they need to be tackled.
And Councillor Riaz, what do you think?
I think for me the priority would be regeneration and attracting national businesses to actually come to Bradford and open offices or establishments here. I think that's what I'd be focusing on, because the youngsters can see a vision, they can see opportunities at the moment. A lot of the youth, they're not seeing any opportunities in Bradford, and it's a shame because I've met so many young individuals who don't actually step foot outside of Bradford, so they don't see the opportunities that lie in places like Leeds, Manchester, and what they see in Bradford is, like you said, they see it as a dump. And that's the image that's being portrayed.
You agree with
Yes, and that's the image that's being portrayed throughout the UK.
You're not going to get investment if people look at it and say, no, it's a dump,
that's
they don't care.
That's what I'm saying, precisely.
Yeah.
And young people, this road crime is at increase.
Antisocial behaviour.
Social behaviour.
It's definitely a big problem in Bradford.
Jeanette, what would you like to say?
So in terms of priority for the city, we're the youngest city, I think, in the UK now. 25% of our population are under the age of 25, and a significant number now, 20% of our population, were born to mothers who were not born here. So our focus needs to be on those young people, because that is the future. Like many cities, we don't have a future to worry about because we have a lot of young people. What we need to do is to raise the aspirations and the attainment levels of our young people. We have far too many young men who are not in work. We have far too many young people who leave school still not able to read and write sufficient to get a job. And we have far too many young people who are born not well. And we have to, whatever that takes now, challenge that. Because if we don't do any of that, we have a high level of graduates living in the district without work as well. So getting people in to bring their business and invest in Bradford, although we've had quite some investment recently, our route and the highest priority for me is about educating young people. So we have significant numbers who are not in school.
Yep.
We're not going to have a political debate about whether or not we think academies are a good idea, but actually we have an awful lot of young people who are not in school, who were excluded from school. And as a very powerful young man once said to me, I've just done 18 years in prison, and the route to prison started outside the classroom, because I should have been in it and I was outside it. And he showed a picture of his old school of an empty classroom, an empty corridor, and he said that is where my criminal career started. And so I think focus entirely, I think now is on raising those attainment levels for young people, and it's not just achievement in terms of raw scores on the doors, which benefit the school. It's about every young person getting the right to the education that they deserve, whether it's in school, out of school, wherever it is. But I come across now, probably every day, a child that's not where they should be, and that will let the city down.
Yeah. So all of you, thank you for sharing what you believe to be the key priorities, but along with that you've also shared what you think are the problems. Common thing that you've all said is about young people. You all agree that obviously we need to change the image of the city to obviously make it investable, but also secure our future, who are our young people. Clearly from what you've all said, it seems that that's not happening. So what do you think we need to do to make that happen? Do you think, obviously, as people who work and live in Bradford, do you think our elected members are doing enough? Chris, you've set up the people you work with are Bradford for Better. That's a voluntary organisation, I believe, that's been set up.
It is. Bradford for Better was set up by a group of residents up Leeds Road in Bradford 4, so therefore Bradford for Better is how the name came. And it was just really people just saying, what can we do as citizens and local individuals and groups and organisations to make the city better, or make our little patch of the city better. So they got together and had a few chats amongst themselves and said, right, the first, one of our big problems is just the way it looks, and it's the litter and it's the fly tipping. So they thought, okay, we'll have a massive clear up. We'll just get everybody out, we'll get the mosques out, we'll get individuals out, we'll get businesses out on a day, in Saturday afternoon, and clear up the streets. And they did that, and they put around that idea, and they talked to other people around the city, and other people said, I want to join in as well. So it was a real upswelling of grassroots feeling that people had to do something for themselves, not wait for somebody else to do it. I think,
is that because you feel that somebody else or people in charge are not doing enough?
There certainly is a problem with a lot of litter on the streets, and the council's job, or one of the council's jobs, and I've got plenty of other good jobs to do, is to clear up the litter. And yes, I don't think in some parts of the city they're doing the job up to the standards that we deserve. And I think,
so one of the solutions you felt was to set up Bradford for Better, is that?
And that's how Bradford for Better started.
Yeah.
And I think one of the good things about that is, because we're not political, we're not part of the council, is that we can do that from both sides of the coin. We can be sort of looking to the council and saying, please do better, but we can also be looking at the people and saying, we need to do better as well. It is addressing that
collective approach.
That thing about why is that litter getting there in the first place? And it's because people don't seem to think that there's enough caring going on. that the residents don't care, so the councils don't care, so the residents don't care, and it's a downward spiral. And the problem seems to be getting worse. So we're trying to break that, and one say to the council, please do a better job. On the other side, we're saying we need to be getting into our own communities and doing a better job ourselves. It's our responsibility, not somebody else. We can be the somebody else to make the change.
And do you think that message is getting across? Are you getting any success?
We only started in May this year. We've now got 2,000 people on our Facebook group and getting 10 new people a day. There is a demand for it around Bradford. All I can say is we're going to get bigger and we're going to get to be a more influential voice in the city and talking for the normal people and not getting mixed up in party political infighting. And
so your work shows that Bradford does want better. Bradford is quite happy to get involved and do its best. Absolutely,
we had another clean-up a couple of weeks ago and we had hundreds of people out there on the streets taking ownership of their own streets. I would like, we as a group would like people to take more interest and adopt their own little area to work in. And then as soon as you get people out on the streets all the time, the other locals can see someone cares. So I can't just drop the litter, I can't just park on the WL lines on the pavement. I can't just let fireworks off at 3 o'clock in the morning because I feel like it. Because the people out there do care. And I think us normal people just haven't had this voice for a long time.
As councillors, what do you think of what Chris and Bradford Better are doing?
I think it's different in different places, isn't it? So Chris and I were talking before the film. It's in my ward, so I represent Idle and Thackley Ward, BD 210. On every single Thursday you can find people out clearing up graveyards. On the first Saturday every month, Idle and Thackley Active is out in some hotspot somewhere cutting back shrubbery. We take very much a guerrilla approach to it. We don't say it's the council's job, it's just our job. We've taken fences down, we've removed trees, we've done all sorts of things. We clear around the traffic islands on a Sunday.
Well done, yep.
And it is just people going, actually, you know what, I don't like what I see outside my front door. We also have a thing called guerrilla litter pickers. So I provide to people litter pickers and some bags. They have an arrangement with the local cleaner who they pick up the bags where they've arranged for them to be left. So people maybe once a fortnight will drop off a green bag next to a litter bin, and the green bags, and the guy who drives the van drives along, sees the bag, picks it up, puts it in, takes it away. And people taking ownership. I think you, in defence of the council, you said the council's job is to pick up the litter. I'd challenge, is it not the person's job not to put it there in the first place? So if you think of the amount of litter waste that comes out of this city, it's the council's job to deal with the waste stream. So what happens to the stuff when we've all picked it up, put it in our dustbins, done whatever we've done with it, and it all arrives somewhere? That is very much the council's job. I would put the challenge back to you around it costs millions of pounds to pick it up. If we didn't put it down in the first place, we'd then have millions of pounds to spend on some of these other priorities, like health, like education, like caring for vulnerable people.
Absolutely.
But we actually have to almost waste it by picking it up in the first place. So for me, the nudge is to people, is if you value this place that you live, after all, you wouldn't throw it down in your front room, would you?
Exactly.
No, you wouldn't. You would clean up sometime in your own home. So why do we allow that stuff to be out in the streets? And the other thing that we do with some residents in our ward is we go challenge some of these businesses. So we stand on the outside and we look and we say, well, actually, if you put your bin not there but there, then we can't see it. If you put your empty oil tins, they're not there, then we don't see it. You know, they have a right to get rid of their rubbish, but actually they don't have a right to contaminate our environment while they operate their business and then disappear off to wherever it is that they live. And so I think what we need is a shift. It's quite interesting. We're going to come on and talk about culture. What? We never defined culture. So I think there's a set of cultures around being polite to each other, caring about our impact on somebody else's, caring about the fact that we keep our community clean. And I think that that's a shared culture, because I've never yet met anybody who says, oh, actually, I just prefer it to be dirty.
I'd be surprised. I'd be shocked if you found something.
However, I have met people who just throw it over the wall because it's not their job to shift it.
Yeah, but some could argue that the facilities aren't there. For example, bin collections now, residents, you'll find lots of them have complained since it's gone to once every fortnight. And obviously there's still a lot of people still confused about recycling bins and general waste.
Right. Councillor Ferry's not here, but I'll deal with it on her behalf. Okay, so I campaigned.
Sorry, I'm not giving you a chance to reply, but we'll come to you. We'll come to you.
I campaigned really hard for the recycling of plastics, which did lead to having Week About Bins. I am the councillor that appeared on leaflets with a rat on top of the head because we were going to be infested by rats because we were going to go to fortnightly bins. Heaven forfend, the world was going to come to an end. The world never ended, and we never got a major rat infestation. But what we did get was a reduction in the amount of rubbish we had to take away and tip in the landfill site. And that's the key for me. So when people say, oh, well, I can't clean up because the rubbish is only picked up once a fortnight, I will personally come and have a look in their bin, and I will help them. And the council has got a whole series of folks with many different language skills, who will come along, who will go, let me help you pick through your rubbish and let's work out what you can recycle and what you need to put to landfill, and actually just what you need to stop buying and bringing home as well. So I live in when we moved bins, I lived in a multi-generational household. There were 3 generations of us, and the first week into a 1 week about bin was really hard.
Yeah,
you know,
I can imagine.
But then I got my mum trained about recycling, and my husband used to laugh. He said every time I went to the recycle bin, she's filled it again. But that is where we need to be.
And the kids are even easier to get on board with it now as well.
So I think it's a little bit of a lame excuse these days to say, oh well, I can't get rid. I have to let my bin overspill in the street because I can't fit. You know, I don't have enough room. Well, actually, across the district there are thousands and thousands of families who are proving that wrong.
Yeah.
And I'm a single man and my bin's got that much in it after 2 weeks, so come and use mine as well.
And what do you think, obviously going back to Chris's project, Bradford for Better, and going back to that main question?
Going back to that question regarding, are we going back to the cleanliness of Bradford? Or?
Yeah, to asking whether, obviously, what do you think of Bradford for Better, the fact that they've had to set it up as a councillor, obviously, what do you think?
I think it's an excellent initiative, because at the end of the day, what's it called? We'd like to, work with them and see what we can do to support them, and how we can. That's
great, you got an offer.
Then we can actually present.
There's elections coming up.
Present your views, to the council, because obviously we represent different communities. I represent a rural community. I don't have this problem regarding litter. We've got so many different groups. We'll just go out and do litter picking up. Yes, we have a big problem with fly tipping, but that's obviously not really related to litter. But however, having lived in the inner city for the most of my life, I know it's a big problem in the inner cities, and we've got to change that culture, because I think I've lost count on a number of occasions in the inner cities where you've been driving and the car in front has just thrown a can out, or they've thrown their tip and food out. it's just becoming the normal.
And I think that Bradford for Better is concentrating on the inner city.
We've got to promote some sort of campaign. What's it called? To empower communities. What's it called? To what's it called? Clean up after themselves. Whether it's stop throwing things out onto the streets, and secondly, what's it called? Like you mentioned, I think there was an initiative. I think it was in Leeds, Adopt a Street, where you find somebody who's willing to take on.
So there's one happening in Shipley.
Yeah, where you take on an entire street and you're in charge of cleaning it, and it's done by volunteers, and it seems to be working.
And once you've got a person on that street who's taken charge of that street,
That's right.
they're also looking to see what else is there, and they're also talking to the local council wardens, the local police people, and they've sort of been the eyes and the ears of the community as well, which isn't happening at the moment.
I'm going to bring in Rubina now, because obviously we're talking a lot about cleanliness, and it seems like we do have something in progress, because that's a priority and we seem to be dealing with that. The other priority that everybody mentioned was young people and obviously health and things. How are we, if that's a priority, what can we do in terms of addressing the issues concerning giving our young people aspirations, as you said, better regeneration, so that obviously from an outside image people see our economy as a good economy. Now, the reason why I'm going to bring you in is because obviously you work in Bradford, you manage a very busy women's community centre, so obviously you've got lots of service users that'll come in and share their concerns with you, but you live outside of Bradford, so you can see from the outside coming in, what kind of image Bradford has, but you work here, so obviously you're dealing with the problems as well. So can you share some of your day-to-day experiences with the people that come and use your centre, and also in terms of talking about that priority about young people, what do you think we should be looking at doing?
After hearing everyone, I'm in agreement with whatever thoughts came out of the discussion. That I believe in the councillors are just the representative of the community, and they try their best. But it's end of the day is the people who have to invest their energies, and because it's concerning people. Now. And I will say that it starts with young people. If we educate young people on these social behaviors, cleanliness, the social mannerism, and kind of, at our level, we do a lot of intergenerational programs where we ask people, elderly people, to share their experiences with the young people. For example, they will share the experience that in our time, these streets used to be so clean, and
in our time.
In the winter.
But we used to polish our doorsteps.
These are the stories we hear. The young people used to go and help in elderly neighbours, and I am for bringing that culture back of the community, the neighbourhood culture, where in the street the neighbours help each other in terms of cleanliness, in terms of the other crime issues. Like, for example, I live out of Bradford, but I'm living very far. I'm just on the borderline, so kind of.
So we can adopt you.
But I noticed that it's the change in culture. How it works. I only moved from Bradford. Previously, I was living in Bradford, a mile. Under 2 miles, and you see a different culture. The people on the road will give you way, they will smile, they will say hello to you, and in the neighborhood street something happens, they will warn you, they will tell you. But I don't see that culture, especially in Bradford, where we serve our catchment area from BD1.
BD1.
I don't see that culture there, and I think it must be there, and it needs to come back. And I think it starts with I'm a big believer of that it starts with the neighborhood, the community together. If we bring that neighborhood back, people know each other, because now no one knows who is your neighbor. So if people know each other, they have their small neighborhood kind of meetings in a community place together, so then they are aware of what's happening and how we can improve things, and then there should be some small incentives, small healthy competitions, and with young people, health, that is a major concern, their mental health, their physical health, and this worries me, where is going to take this generation, because like you said, they are our future, and we will be. I will hold myself responsible if we could not do anything.
Yeah.
for
So
them.
you're saying about bringing this culture back. So how can we do that? Should the council do like a big marketing campaign, or should they enforce that more, or should it be up to us as residents to try and
Up
reach
to
out
us as
more?
resident, my approach will be it's community people. They have to. I'm always believing God helps those who help themselves. Yeah, so people have to help themselves. They have to have their self-help groups, self-developed groups, because you can't expect everything from council and councillors.
Yeah. And how do we change this image that Chris spoke about earlier, and you mentioned it as well, in terms of regeneration, it's what people see from the outside about us. I mean, Rubina mentioned that obviously it's that respect, that culture's not there, it's missing. So how do we change that image? What do we do? Obviously we're saying that ourselves, but on this panel we'll all say that, but the outside community that we know and live in, I mean, it's not happening, is it, clearly? So how do we get this image changed? What do you think?
I think we struggle with highlighting our achievements in Bradford. Anytime there's...
Do you think we're a city of mourners more than we're a city
mourners,
of...
every time there's... you could have a minor drugs case or something. However, for some strange reason, it's highlighted throughout the entire UK. It's like half the time we don't know what's going on in neighbouring areas like Leeds and Halifax, but if you meet somebody in Leeds or Halifax or neighbouring areas, they'll know exactly what's going on in Bradford, and you think, oh, it's amazing. Bad news travels fast, and it's changing that whole perception of Bradford. And I think this capital culture bid, even though I wasn't in favour of it, because the cutbacks libraries are receiving, various other institutions are receiving, but I think it's going to be a way that would promote our city in a positive limelight.
Yeah. If I was to ask you, what are the positives then that we can send out to everybody? What would you say are the positives of Bradford? Just putting you on the spot.
I think we've got our heritage sites in Saltaire. We're one of the most thriving cities, probably in the world at one time. This is going back to the Woolen Miller era. We've got our museums, curry capital.
Yeah.
And that's the way we've got to promote ourselves.
What would you like to add to that?
You wanted me to say what's good about being here.
Yes.
All of our education stuff, we've been the first at so many things in Bradford. All of the suiting that Prada uses is made in Bradford. We make Formula 1 engines here. We are on the fast track of lots and lots of very fine engineering stuff. Major players in the chemical industry, and I think worrying about what the buildings look like is actually some of the things that hold us back. So we worry about what we can see. Personally, I'd start to take some of it out. I am one of the few councillors who would start taking out some of these old mills before they get burnt down and actually saying, what is it we need to do to change the face of our city? But I think we have some really important achievements. Our Burns unit is world renowned. Our some of the research and development that's done at Bradford University is second to none. So we need to sing those praises louder and to be less critical. But where we do need to be critical is people that have bought up buildings in the hope that they'll get some grant from somebody to do it up. I mean, look at Conditioning House. Don't tell me that they waited for £1 million grant before they did that. They've wrecked that bit of Bradford for as long as I can ever remember. And there are other places that are exactly the same. And I think maybe we ought to have a bit of a review about who owns what. And I live in a conservation property, and the planners are on my tail if I don't put in the right windows, don't paint it the right colour, don't have it. So how come some of these people that own half of Little Germany, for instance, are not being held to the same standards as somebody who owns a cottage in Eschol or Saltaire or on some of these other small villages? So I think that we need to be much tougher, because actually then they're getting away with it in both ways, because they're not paying the business rates either. And so they're running our city down, they're not paying the business rates, and they're sitting about waiting for a grant from somebody in order to make that happen. And actually I think as people, one of the things we need to say is, well, actually, you know what? Keep it tidy, keep it up to date. If you can't manage it, well, let's just get rid of it. Because there are some buildings that we need to keep because they're really important. Yeah, but there are some that actually we just need to let go now.
Yeah.
Having said that, I've just come back from Prague and they're doing an amazing job. Everywhere you look, old buildings are being brought back into use.
Wonderful.
So, but we are missing out somewhere,
missing
and
out.
I think it's people who buy cheap
Yeah.
are expecting a grant.
That's
to
a
put
question
it
of
right.
ownership, isn't it? And,
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'd love to see the old mills taken back. My mum lives in a mill conversion, and it's lovely.
Yeah.
So yeah, these places need to be brought back, and they're sitting there falling to pieces everywhere. Yeah.
Yeah. If I was to ask you the same question though, Chris, what do you think are the positives of Bradford?
Positives of Bradford. It's my home city, and it's the people. As we keep saying, it's the youngest city in Britain. We have so much young talent. Our own city and do their own thing. We are a textile city, and I look at some of the Asian fashions around and think, get that out to the rest of the world. Where's the talent in fashion designers? For instance, and use the multicultural side of Bradford for its own advantage, and get out there and be good at something. Bradford's the 6th biggest city in England, but in terms of importance, we're well down the list. We need to get out there and say, this is us, we're proud to be who we are.
Fantastic. And if you were to big us up to your residents in Leeds, where you live, how would you big Bradford? What are the positives for you?
City of culture.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Do you
because for me,
So
it's
we've got
quite-
the bench.
But yeah, the heritage, and we ourselves at Women's Zone have delivered and continuously delivering the heritage projects. And that's how we are reminding young people. That's our contribution to the community. When I said that we need to educate young people about the olden cultures, how things were working amongst neighborhood, and we're doing that through heritage projects, and we bring younger lot and elderly people together, and asking them to share their stuff. What was better then, and why young people think was good now. So and how we can make it better, because it's a place for both of you to live. So I will say, from coming from Leeds, if I have to sing song of Bradford, city of culture it's got the richness of heritage, and it's quite close to me because I landed. This was my first point of landing when I came from Pakistan, and I'm here for 31 years now. So
It's home, isn't it?
it's a home now. It's a second home. Indeed, I lived less in Pakistan because I was only 24 when I came. So and I never felt that I'm not in. It to me was like my hometown. The place I come from, they call that they call that their little Bradford. And what really I love about Bradford is that, especially volunteer sector I work for, they have got this ambition to make Bradford better. And people kind of they wherever you go, but this like I go to different towns of Bradford, and I have opportunity to stay sometimes there by Miss Bradford. Something about Bradford, maybe you can't put in words. I don't know if it's a culture, it's a heart, something.
Got that homely feel to it.
But like other cities like Birmingham, Leeds, they've got this heritage aspect.
But we are a city of sanctuary as well, aren't we?
Yeah, there is something about it. You see different colours, and this. It's more kind of harmony I see, and cohesion amongst different cultures. I think many more different cultures are living here, and they're kind of harmonious. So not as many problems you see.
That's great to hear, and it's nice that we're getting to hear all the positives of the city, and there are loads. We just need to, as Councillor Jeanette said, we need to shout about it a bit more. So obviously you've mentioned City of Culture a lot, so that leads me on to talking about City of Culture.